Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hotspur Huddle. We've come to the end of the season, so we thought we might do an awards special this evening to really round up the Premier League. And with me, like always on a Wednesday, I'm joined by amazing guests and co-hosts, shall we put it out there, because you do ask me questions as well. And I'm joined by first off Wes. Wes, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I am absolutely brilliant, Holly. It was so good to be back. Obviously, gutted that we missed last week because I had some really good sort of tactical analysis planned, lined up, and then obviously your car decided to give up on you, which was a bit of a shame. But obviously, life comes first. But no, really looking forward to this one tonight. And yeah, it was a shame about the Arsenal at the weekend, though, wasn't it?
Was a little bit. And as we're talking about Arsenal, Nelson, how are you feeling, my friend?
We keep going, we keep pushing. I'm good, Holly. End of the season is what it is. Like, Wes knows me. I'm not one of them deluded ones, but at the end of the day, this is why it's the big leagues for the reason, So you gotta take advantage of all your results, and we just didn't do that. So, at least Prince Philip, that's my Prince Philip. That's my Prince Philip, that's all I got to say. But I'm looking forward to the rest of the show.
Right, it should be good. Well, we'll move away from Arsenal unless we've got some awards we want to give out to them. Like Wes said before we came on, maybe the Bottler Award. But we'll leave that for later. But no, it's great to have you both on. Obviously, like we always say, this show is sponsored by the amazing Kofa. So Wes, I'm going to let you far away, do your thing, talk about Kofa because I know it's a busy time at the moment.
Yes, it is. Massively busy time for us at Kofa HQ. We have lots and lots and lots of things coming up. Obviously, next week, with it being half term, we've got a holiday camp coming up. We've also got a trial day coming up for our boys and what is soon to be our girls' academy setups. So we are very much looking forward to that. And then also we have our weekly sessions, so your one-to-ones, your skills centre, your after-school football, etc., all going off. So if you are in the Milton Keynes area or nearby, please get in touch. We would love to help your son or daughter along their footballing journey.
Lovely stuff. So make sure you go check out Kofa. Also, like I always say, we've got our little kits going on with Alloy Collectors. Make sure you go check them out. The link's in the description below. Go get one. Obviously, there'll be new ones on the way for Spurs because obviously there'll be new kits and for other teams as well. So go check that out. And let's move on to the good stuff now. And that is our awards. So we've got a lot of awards planned for this evening. Some of them, like me, are just going to be Spurs awards. But the boys have come up ones that are general or one Spurs and another one from the Premier League. So Wes, we're going to fire off with the first one to you first, and that is Player of the Year. So who have you gone for?
I think Player of the Year from a Spurs perspective, Mickey van der Ven. I think he's just been absolutely brilliant throughout the year. Fantastic centre half, and I think it's crazy to think in terms of what he's done in a Spurs shirt, and this is only his first year in the Premier League. And I think at times people forget that because of how good he has been in a Spurs shirt. And then I would argue my Player of the Year away from Spurs is Mr. Declan Rice baby. I think, again, been absolutely fantastic at Arsenal, transformed the midfield, stepped up in big moments, I think, when they've needed him to, taken on the mantle. I think of, when Thomas Partey's been missing, he's really stepped up and, and I'm sure Nelson will agree as well, there's been times where nobody's mentioned the fact that Partey was missing for that length of time because Rice was that good. And yeah, I just think he's been absolutely brilliant. And again, it's more of a consistency thing, I think, with Deckers with attackers. So yeah, I've gone Van der Ven from a Spurs perspective and Declan Rice from a non-Spurs perspective.
I like it. I'll leave mine to the end, but it might sound a bit familiar. There might be a bit of crossing over. But Nelson, who is your player of the season?
I'm actually surprised that Wes went for that one. I can't lie. Wasn't thinking that he'd go for Deckers. But as I mentioned quite earlier, when you asked me how I was doing, I actually went with someone who was the force in making sure that I couldn't celebrate on the weekend. And that is Prince Philip Foden. I had to go with Prince Philip. Wes knows how much I love him. We both love him as a football player. And hopefully, Gareth Southgate, if you are watching this, that is a clear sign to play him this summer. Now, we don't know what's going to happen, but again, what can I say about him? I mean, best first touch in the league since Mara's left, in my opinion. Best first touch in the league. His guile, his agility, his balance, and what's been really fascinating and actually really joyful to watch is, like Wes mentioned, Declan Rice stepping up, but Phil has taken that step up. Like since KDB, mainly everyone knows he's the man, but I think Foden's taken on that responsibility this season and realized, you know what, there's a gap for me here and I can take that, and he's absolutely seized it. So I have to give him praise. From an outsider's perspective, I love watching him. I think he's really improved his off-the-ball stuff as well. We know how good he is on the ball. I've been impressed as well in his work ethic as well off the ball. And I think Pep has just kind of like, rinsed and repeat with that with him, and he's been doing that for years. And you think, a couple of years back when, crazy enough that he's won 6 titles, still at 23 years old. I think the first 2 people could argue that he wasn't really a major part of it, but obviously post-COVID, he's been absolutely electric. So the goals have come up as well for him to bag over 20 goals a season as well. I think will be a big plus for him. He'll have a major boost from that. But I can't. There's so many things I can say about him, but he's my player of the season, Phil Foden.
I like that. I mean, as we all know, I'm just Spurs through and through, so I kind of overlook everyone else. But Philly Foden has been insane this season, even though I can say that. But obviously, my player of the year, Wes has already said him, and that is Daddy Longlegs, Mickey van der Ven. There is no one I could have given it to other than him. He's just been absolutely immense. Kind of echoing what Wes said, he's just come into that Tottenham side and absolutely transformed us. That kind of leads us on to the next one, which again, I'll be doing a Spurs perspective, and these guys will be mixing up a little bit, but we're going to go with signing of the season. So it's a little bit different, and this time, Nelson, I'll come to you first. So who's your kind of signing of the season?
Do you know what? I feel like I have to change mine because Wes has obviously pointed out his player of the season in Declan Rice, and he was actually my first choice for the impact that he's had this season. So I feel like Wes has talked enough about Declan Rice. I don't feel like I don't need to add on to that. So I had a runner-up, but I think he's also, I think you could argue he's a great contender for signing in the season, and that's Mr. Cole Palmer, and I had to give that to him as well. I think he's been excellent for Chelsea. It's funny enough that, the game that they played against Arsenal, Pochettino came out and said that, this is not Cole Palmer Football Club, this is Chelsea Football Club. And then the result kind of makes you think, okay. I mean, he's had that much of an impact. I think in terms of the top 5 leagues across Europe, his goal contributions, I think he's in the top 5. It's remarkable what he's done. I think heading into this season, I think he probably would have thought in terms of his status, what can he bring to City? I think at that point, he probably didn't think that he could probably get a move to Chelsea because I think he was thinking to probably crack into the City side. And obviously, in the Community Shield, scored a great goal against Arsenal. You're thinking, okay, he's knocking on the door. But obviously, Chelsea come in, swoop him up, and he's had some remarkable performances. I think was it the game against Everton, the crazy game against Everton, the hat trick. He scored many hat tricks, but that game, like just the silk, the class, like you could tell this is a boy playing with confidence, and he's still 22. So I'm really happy for him. I think we all rated him when he was at the City Academy. Now he's taken that step for himself, and hopefully the next manager that comes in this summer for Chelsea can still use him. But he's that kind of player that gives me the vibe that regardless of who comes in, he'll still do his job. So you've got to give him props. So my signing of the season, Cole Palmer.
Nice. I like it. And you, Wes, who is your signing of the season?
Well, this is quite an interesting one for me. And I did give it some serious thought. Because obviously the players of the years that I mentioned were also brand new signings for their team. So in my mind, I was kind of going, well, if I'm giving them player of the year, with them being new signings, they also have to be signings of the seasons as well. So I've gone again with Van der Ven and Declan Rice because, as I mentioned in their player of the year, Van der Ven come in, completely transformed Tottenham's back line, transformed, I would all argue as well, the way that we play. Being left-footed gives us a hell of a balance on that side of the defence. I think we've longed for a replacement for Supian, and Van der Ven is it, and probably more, I would argue. So yeah, signing of the season from a Spurs perspective, again, Mickey van der Ven. And yeah, Declan Rice, as Nelson sings sometimes to the top of his voice, we got him half price. I mean, you could get Muller Rice for a lot cheaper, to be honest. So yeah, I just think Declan, again, from a non-Spurs perspective, I think signing the season, he was one of the players that was there to take Arsenal to that next level. I know obviously they bottled the league again, which was quite funny. But he's the stature of Declan Rice, the persona, the profile that he has. I think going into that Arsenal team, it suits, it fits, and he's a really humble guy as well. And yeah, that was the real statement signing for Arsenal as well. And I think the downside is that they also signed a really good young player in Jordan Timber. And I think had it not been for his ACL, I think a lot of people will be talking about him. So it'll be interesting to see how he does next year. But Rice being that statement signing, and when you shell out that amount of money for a player, they need to deliver. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, Rice has definitely done that. So, yeah, I couldn't look past those two really, considering they were my player of the year as well.
No, it does make sense though. Like you say, if you pick a player of the year and they've just come into the club, then they are technically going to be the sign of the year, which is why I kind of had a headache as well, because I wanted to give it to Mickey van der Ven too. But I was like, I'm going to give it to Vicario because, again, it's the same sort of thing. He's come into Spurs. He's kind of reshaped how he plays in goal after having Hugo for so long. There were kind of big shoes he had to fill, and none of us kind of knew who he was. But now we certainly do. So I had to give it to Vicario. But Wes, I'm going to come back to you, fire another one at you, and that is, who is your bargain of the season?
Bargain of the season. You've teamed me up nicely here because it is Big Vic from a Spurs perspective. 17 million of King Charles's finest. I mean, he's absolutely tapped in the head, to be honest. Like, he is not all there, Vicario. Trust me. But yeah, I think what announced Vicario to not only Spurs fans but to fans of the Premier League was the game against Man United. I think he made a pretty world-class save from, I think it was Casemiro. And then everybody was like, whoa, okay, who we got here? Because I think the Brentford game, there was a lot of question marks, for myself included, because I didn't think he was going to last very long. With that Brentford game, the first game of the season, he looked nervous and shaky as anything. And you're going, what on earth have we got here? But I think that United game was crucial for him. He announced himself pretty much in that game. And then, since then, I think he's been brilliant. Fairly comfortable on the ball, I would argue, off both feet. I wouldn't say he's amazing, but then, having said that, when you sign a goalkeeper, yes, they have to be able to play with their feet, but you automatically then compare them to Ederson and Alisson because they are the standard. I don't think Vicario's there by any stretch, but you can sort of trust him a little bit with his feet, whereas Lloris couldn't trust him to distribute a letter with his feet. Christ. So yeah, I've gone with Big Vic from a Spurs perspective. Bargain of the season elsewhere. Cole Palmer, 40 million again of King Charles's finest, and he looks like, if Chelsea were to sell him, they would get 3 times that amount easily. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him this summer as well with the Euros, whether he's going to get much of a look in or not. Although I think the state of the squad, it looks like he might get an opportunity somewhere along the line. But yeah, I think as Nelson said, Cole Palmer's just been an absolute revelation, I think, in that Chelsea team. I think when everybody saw how much he was going for, everybody was like, really? But yeah, he's paid that back and more. And I think he likes the mantle of, and he carries it really well, of being that main guy at Chelsea. Like, give me the ball. I want to take responsibility for situations. So I had to go for Cole Palmer. From a Premier League perspective.
No, I like it. Again, good choices. But Nelson, who's your bargain of the season?
I actually thought Wes would go for this one, but I think Wes probably considered him too. And unfortunately, I actually think he'll be back in the Premier League next season because obviously his team got relegated. But I had to go for Ross Barkley. Ross Barkley was my bargain of the season. Free transfer, came into that Luton squad, and again, I think he's revived his Premier League career. Was a really big fan of him at Everton. We know that it didn't really work out. We're obviously going to Chelsea and whatnot. But he's really come back at Luton, really been that veteran squad, but also looks like he's still got a bit of youth left in him, even though he's 30, I believe 30 or 31. He still looks like he's got the youth, like, you know, because he was known for having a lot of athleticism as well for someone with his stature. We all know how good he is technically. And me being obviously an Arsenal fan and watching him actually destroy our whole midfield, like, I just realized that I was like, people, look, Ross Barkley has not gone away. Like, he is still that guy. So I wanted to give Ross Barkley his props. I think he did a great service to Luton this season. And obviously, depending on where he wants to go, if he wants to stay, he'll happily stay. But I think there will be some suitors for him this summer. I think definitely he could come back next season and potentially help maybe another, you know, side that's promoted, or maybe go to another mid-table team, because he's definitely still got that quality. So, Hollie, yeah, that was my pick. I went for Ross Barkley.
I like that. It's interesting. Like I say, again, me being Spurs, not watching anything else. I think you're right. Like, in that game, like you said, he did kind of pull the strings and sort of thing. For me, it's going to be a bit of a controversial one from a Spurs perspective, because I know he's got a lot of stick. And for me, I think it would be Werner, just purely because of the price tag. We're not really paying anything really until the end of the season if we want to keep him. And I know he hasn't been brilliant. He hasn't set the world alight. But the assists he's added to Tottenham this season, I think warrants a little bit of a bargain of a season, I would say. But we're going to go with best manager. And I'm going to mix it up this time, because I can actually say someone that isn't Spurs. So, yeah, there's a spoiler. It's not Ange Postecoglou. But, Nelson, we'll start with you first. Who is your manager of the season?
Oh, gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this. Because I think Wes knows who my manager is. But, you know, good evening. Yeah, it's a great time to announce that Unai Emery is my manager this season. What else do I need to say? I think he's been absolutely sensational for Villa. Probably the reason why I couldn't celebrate on the weekend as well. Nabbed points off us throughout the entire season, 6 points. And the way he's just come in, and even last season when he came and stepped in and kind of like calmed, you know, the stress and anxiety that Villa fans probably had. And he's come in, taken on, and this season he's just kicked on. I think he's propelled a lot of performances for a certain number of players like Douglas Luiz, who's now like been one of the mainstays, Yuri Tillemans, who was a really good signing as well. Even the last few games this season, you've got John Duran, who I think not many people paid notice to. I think he's come into the side as well. And I think Unai Emery's given him that confidence. But obviously, if we talk about one player that he's really transformed that we know is Ollie Watkins. And boy, Ollie, oh gosh, that dink still brings me nightmares. But yeah, Ollie's been sensational under him. And I think that just goes to show his great management as well, being able to give confidence to that player and just transforming. And Ollie's now like, you know, the main striker in a potentially, we don't know how far Villa could go after, you know, securing Champions League football. They could be like what Martin O'Neill did with Aston Villa back in the day. I was a really big fan of their side, and they were really competing for, you know, the top 4 places. So there's something brewing there up there in Brummy Town. But I think you got to give Unai Emery his flowers. So I'll let Wes do the tactical side. I just kind of focused on just, you know, his charisma, and then again, just, you know, his man management. But Unai Emery is definitely coach of the season for me.
Yeah, he has been decent. And Wes, the tactical man, who's your manager of the season?
This was really, really tricky for me. I've got 2. It is a good evening to Mr. Unai Emery as one. Yeah, I think Nelson touched on a lot of good points there. I think the way he's transformed this Villa team. Yes, he spent a few quid, but there was a lot that he needed to do, I think, with the team. And actually, he's made tweaks with a lot of the players who are actually in the building. And that is a difficult job to do. And let's not forget, they were sort of bottom 3, if not bottom of the league when he took over. Now he's got them into the Champions League. You know, in his first full season, really. So yeah, you have to look at Unai Emery. Obviously, the sort of double pivot that he plays with Douglas Luiz and Tillemans, and you know, the pace that they've got in forward areas. Watkins, Bailey, Moussa Diaby. You know what I mean? You look at them 3 and you go, "This is going to be a long day for a defender." You know, everybody talks about Ange Postecoglou and the high line that Tottenham play. Villa also deploy a really high line as well. And I think, unless someone in the comments wants to correct me if I'm wrong, they have got the most offsides this year, Aston Villa, in terms of getting people offside. So their offside trap works really, really well. And I think Emery has done a lot tactically to change and be different compared to his time at Arsenal, because he did get a lot of stick for that. And I think, the best bit of analysis that you could argue from a tactical point of view with Emery was that Jamie Carragher had done on a Monday Night Football. I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago. That in terms of how to set up against an opponent was just absolutely brilliant. And actually the way Carragher broke it down as well was fantastic. But also I want to give a shout out to Ginger Mourinho, Sean Dyche, because the job he has done at Everton in the circumstances that he's found himself in has been absolutely ridiculous. Points deductions left, right, and centre, having to cut the wage bill, selling star players, and then having to almost sort of wheel and deal and have to be really clever in the transfer market. I think he's just done brilliantly, and I think it's easy, I think, when you get into that type of situation as a manager or a coach where you could just moan and blame the circumstance and all the noise, the outside noise. He's just dismissed it and just, I think he's got everybody at the club pulling in the same direction and just going, look, we can't affect what's going on outside. What we can affect is what we do on the pitch. And yeah, I think, to get Everton clear of danger in the way that he has just been absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I want to give a shout out to Sean Dyche. I think Rob Edwards would have been in there for me as well had he kept Luton up. But unfortunately couldn't quite get that one over the line. But yeah, Emery and Sean Dyche for me.
I like it. I'm going to go. I think me and Darren are on the same wavelength, because I went for Oliver Glasner just purely because Palace have had an absolute turnaround. I don't know what he's been putting in their breakfast, their Weetabix, whatever you have, but the games I've seen with Palace in recent weeks have just been absolutely phenomenal. So I would have to give it to Glasner for that one, just because, like I say, it's come out of nowhere the way he's managed to turn around that football club and get them playing a different style of football and then getting the results, but not just getting the results, annihilating teams that they play. So that was, for me, who I went for. But we're going to move on to most underrated player of the season. Now, Wes, I'm going to come to you first. Fire away.
Yeah, so most underrated player for me from a Spurs perspective is the man that traded Lisbon for Tottenham High Road, Pedro Porro. Yeah, I don't think he gets the credit he deserves from Spurs fans. He's had a fantastic season for me. There was a lot of talk as well in the first sort of few games, especially in the summer, as to whether he could actually be moved on, despite the fact that, he's not really been there that long. And it would have, there's a lot of sort of how's he going to play under Ange, all this kind of stuff. I think he's taken to the role that Ange wants him to do ridiculously well. He is really good on the ball, good at operating high as well, receiving on the half turn, which for a fullback is really difficult to do. And yeah, I think his overall defensive play as well has improved massively. Like, I can only think of Jeremy Doku that's really given the runaround this season, both home and away. So yeah, for me, Pedro Porro from a Spurs perspective, and then more general Premier League perspective, this one's probably going to shock a lot of people. That's Wataru Endo for Liverpool. Really, really underrated. I know we did our sort of underrated 11s not long ago, and we waxed lyrical about Pascal Gross in particular. But, we've given him his flowers. We've given him his props. I thought it was time for someone else. And Endo, when I look at that Liverpool midfield and, the way he's come in, sort of done his job, goes under the radar, does all the sort of ugly stuff, the unfancied stuff, and then it allows the likes of McAllister, Szoboszlai, Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones to a certain degree to kind of go and do their stuff. And, there's a lot of criticism when he arrived at Liverpool because he's what, 31, 15 million or whatever. And it was like, oh, really? It felt like a bit of a stopgap for Liverpool. Whereas I think his time there, I think now, if he's fit, you would argue he starts in that crucial number 6 position. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him with Arne Slot Machine coming in, obviously next season for Liverpool point of view. But yeah, I'm going to go with Endo from a general sort of Premier League perspective, and then Porro from a Spurs perspective.
Interesting. I like it. And Nelson, who are you throwing into the mix, the most underrated player of the season?
Look, so many names have been coming up in the last 10 seconds, and I'm asking myself, where do I go from here? But if I have to, I think Darren, I believe it was Darren that made a comment, and I think that had caused a light switch, like a light bulb moment. And I had him in like, I'm gonna give it to Jean-Philippe Mateta. I'm gonna give it to Jean-Philippe Mateta, and I think the reason why I think is because, first of all, he's built like a non-league striker. Let's put it that way. Okay, probably 6'2", whatnot, and looks like Bambi on ice. But Glasner's come in and like he's pointed out in that comment, really transformed the side. And I actually think he was actually quite underrated when Hodgson was there as well, and actually played a few games under Hodgson and really made it. He was a really good super sub. I noticed a couple of times he came on and made an impact to some of the games that Palace had. But he's kicked on. Glasner, I think, Glasner's given him the confidence, and actually we're actually seeing a really good strike under him. And who knows? It's giving me Michu vibes. I don't know why. I'm getting Michu vibes. So hopefully next season, brings back the old little celebration and that. But I think he's got a good touch on him. Really big, strong, can hold up the ball, good in the air. And has a good finish on him as well. So he's really impressed me in the last few games of the season. I think fantasy-wise, whoever had him in fantasy would know how much he did, good results as well. But hopefully he can kick on from this and actually get into that rated sort of column. But I would have to give it to him. I had a lot of other names come up. When Wes mentioned Endo, I thought of McAllister, because I still think McAllister doesn't get his flowers. I think McAllister as well. I actually was going to put Adam Wharton in there because I think that boy deserves also his flowers because he's a baller as well. So Palace as well. Palace is probably underrated FC. Probably have to say that. But my pick is Mateta.
Mateta reminds me of you when you played, Nels.
And that's a good comparison. Not bad. That's actually not bad. I'll take that.
Oh, I love that. No, that's good. It's interesting. For me, obviously from a Spurs perspective, I went for Pepe Matasard purely because I think everybody else, apart from Spurs fans, don't necessarily see him. It kind of goes under the radar. I'm not fussed about that because that means we get to keep him. But again, he'd have to be my most underrated player. And now we're going to mix it up because Nelson, we're going to go for best drip. Now, this is either going to tell us that you have really good fashion sense or the person you've picked doesn't really align with you. But it's out there. It's something different. So, Nelson, roll with it. Who has the best drip?
Yeah, man. You got to start with me because I've been watching. If you go on, guys, I was going to plug the Instagram account, Footballer Fits. Check out Footballer Fits. They are the ones where they'll put, all the best kind of fits. By the way, your whole squad, there's drip running through the whole squad. I just want to point that out. And Liverpool as well. But I think your squad has the best drip in general throughout the Premier League. But I actually gave it to somebody who not only has drip, but actually released a music track at the same time this season. And I gave it to Amadou Onana. Like, Amadou Onana, in my opinion, has ridiculous drip. And look, we could talk about the brands that he wears and whatnot, but I think he knows, I could go talk about fashion, how he knows what he needs to wear to kind of make the fit look great. But he wears it with confidence as well. I think, he has a swagger on the pitch and off the pitch. And for him to make a track as well, that a lot of people actually rated, a good singing voice. There's not really much you can say about best strip, but at the end of the day, like, I see that he has this bravado and swagger about him that he brings on the pitch as well as off the pitch. So I gave it to Amadou Onana. I think Alex Iwobi was a close second. And also James Madison was also in my top three. But I had to give it to Amadou Onana. But interesting to see what you guys went for.
I love this. Onana, I love it. Thank you. No, it's weird. Hotspur Huddle's now turned into a fashion show. I'm loving it. Wes, far away with yours now.
Yeah, so I've gone completely left field here with best drip. I've gone for two managers on this one. My first one is Rob Edwards, the Luton manager. The suavest geezer you've ever seen. Like, he just oozes like he's going on a night out after managing. It's like, football at 3, but Weatherspoons at like 7. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I went with Rob Edwards, and I also went for man of the people, man of South London, Oliver Glasner. How are you going to go to Palace, South Side, and rock the Canada Goose? The Moncler, like, just fit in seamlessly with the drip just to fit the area. Like, he's coaching on the side. You know what I mean? He's looking suave. He's got the labels on check. So yeah, I went with those two, Rob Edwards and Oliver Glasner.
I like it. I like the twist on it as well, Wes. Instead
Good
of player,
twist.
you've gone for manager. I like it. I'm going to be, I kind of want to echo what Nelson said, and I've gone for Maddison purely because some of the outfits he wear are like bizarre, but not bizarre. I look at them and then I'm like, what is he wearing? And I look at it again, I'm like, oh, okay. Me talking about fashion probably isn't the best thing. So I'm going to stick with Maddison and move on. And I'm going to come to you, Wes, another bizarre one. And we're going to go for player most likely to make a combination. Now, before I ask you for your player, there's a name ringing around in my head.
Yeah.
And there's probably a name ringing around in a lot of Spurs fans' head. So I'm going to let you take the floor to see if it's the same person I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think when this one was put in the group chat, there was only one Spurs player that would qualify. He can't defend, he can't attack. Emerson Royale is our wing back. What a guy! I mean, he literally just makes compilation videos for the sake of it. But it's just the most random stuff that you will see in there. Like, it's a step over and a no look pass, but it's like loads of them back to back. So yeah, definitely Emerson Royale from a Spurs perspective. I then went for Erebici Eze. I probably butchered his first name as well, but I've gone with Eze for the sort of Premier League point of view. I just feel like obviously he'll have a lot of goals, a lot of skills, some cracking passes in there. And put it this way, if he was like lower down the pyramid and he made this compilation video, he would get a move off the back of it. I think Eze could have his own like YouTube reel and get a move off the back of it. I mean, the likelihood is he's going to go in the summer anyway. But even if he wasn't, if somebody just chopped up all of Eze's bits and put them in a compilation video, you would genuinely think the kid's worth like 120 million. Like, it's a joke. So yeah, Emerson Royale for the comedic point of view, and then Erebici Eze for the kind of YouTube vibes kind of view is what I've gone for with those.
I like how you kind of done a balance there, because I just automatically thought Emerson Royale straight away, done, dusted, move on. But it's quite nice you span it as well to be like, actually, this would be a decent one rather than a comedic one. But Nelson, who is your player most likely to make a compilation video?
Well, it's when you mentioned this category, Hollie, I already knew who was my number one, because I've actually paid a lot of attention to mainly his TikTok account. Does it on Instagram a bit, but his TikTok account, who has many compilations, primarily because of his celebrations, and he makes these celebrations based off Japanese anime. So I had to give mine to Dominic Solanke. Dominic Solanke makes a lot of compilations and based obviously of his highlights and stuff. But if you actually go and check out his account, like there's like whoever's edited those videos, these are really good edits to add, some kind of animation in their cartoon and then kind of transition it to Dominic celebrating as well. So these are all like famous celebrations. I know Bournemouth's TikTok account has also done one based on, Dominic's celebrations this season as well. And like Wes said, if you looked at Eze's videos in lower leagues, you would have thought he was a baller. But if you looked at Solanke's videos, you probably thought that, football was a side hustle, because like the way he's just, putting all these anime stuff, like people are barely going to understand it. And you're just thinking, is football really your main job? So yeah, I had to give mine to Dominic Solanke. So that's my most likely to make a compilation.
I like that. No, that's a good spin on it as well. Thinking not necessarily the footballing side, but the celebration side. I never thought of it like that, but I've actually seen those videos, which is a surprise, because you all know I don't really watch a lot of other football. So, but no, I like that. But Nelson, sticking with you, we're going to go back into the good stuff and decide who our goal of the season or the year. Who would you give it to?
I don't think there was really any doubt who would get goal of the season for me, because I've watched it countless times, watched back the commentary, it has to be Garnacho versus Everton for me. I think that was a ridiculous goal. I've compared his strike to Wayne Rooney's derby goal back in 2011, I believe. And yeah, I think his Garnacho's one was just better. You know, a further distance, the way he's had to really pedal back and really put that much power and accuracy to get it into that far corner. You're just going to have to give him credit for that goal. It was a ridiculous strike. One of the best overhead kicks I've seen in my life. Kudus, you know, was very close with that brilliant effort. You know, if that had helped, you know, win something, then I probably would have put a goal of the season because it won Arsenal the league. But yeah, I think I had to give it to Garnacho. It'd be very intriguing to see. If, I tried to think of other ones, if there was any solo runs. I know there were some great goals. I know McAllister as well had a great goal as well from about 35 yards. But I have to give mine to Garnacho. It was quite simple. So that's my goal of the season.
No, that was a very, very good goal. So yeah, credit where it's due, Nelson, 100%. And Wes, what was your kind of goal of the year or goal of the season?
Ollie Watkins versus Arsenal at the Emirates. No, I think from a Spurs perspective, I've gone with Van der Ven against Forest, the absolute whiz bomber into the roof of the net. And I also have gone for a goal that probably people may have forgotten about, but James Maddison's goal away at Burnley, that was an absolutely wicked goal. I also think one of Son's goals in that game as well was brilliant. That was a real team move as well. But Maddison's one was just unbelievable. And I did put Garnacho down from a Premier League kind of point of view. I didn't put Ollie Watkins, Nelson, don't worry. I did put Garnacho down. I think Nelson's described it there. It was, you know, it's an overhead kick. It's very rare that you see one sort of better like that. So yeah, I've gone with Alejandro Garnacho from Premier League, and then Van der Ven or Maddison from a Spurs perspective.
Very nice. For me, I'm going to have to go for, because of my memory and how short it is, I'm probably going to have to go for Mickey Van der Ven's goal. I think it was against Palace. Again, I was very drunk that day, so I had to rewatch the highlights. But it was the way that he obviously managed to be where he was to score the goal. And it's like his body was taken over by some sort of, I don't know, other being, because you see his body turn and his legs going the other way. And then he manages to put it, I think it was near post rather than a cross post. So for me, it would have to be that one against Palace, and plus I was there, so it was even better to see Mickey Van der Ven.
Burnley, wasn't it?
Was it Burnley? There you go. See, I don't even know what day I'm on, what game I'm on. So it was one of Mickey Van der Ven's goal. So definitely against Burnley, not Palace. But we're going to move to the last one before we kind of talk maybe a little bit about the England squad, because obviously that did come out the other day. So last question goes to you first, Wes, is young player of the season. Who would you give it to?
From a Spurs perspective, I want to have a dance with your doggy. I want to win the league with your doggy, basically. He's just been unbelievable for Spurs. Yeah, I think we were after a left back, and we were really, I think majority of Spurs fans were really unsure in terms of what we were going to get. But you look at him and you think he's an absolute unit because he's a massive size. But I think the most impressive thing is he's gone from playing a wing back to then playing inverted and playing almost in a pocket in a 10. Again, similarly to Porro, receives the ball really, really well on the half turn. Quick, so can recover well. And yeah, has really helped Spurs in terms of the way we play. And obviously his chant is absolutely wicked as well. But yeah, I think he's probably been one of my favourite players to watch this year. And you know, there's been times where we've had other fullbacks, not just left backs, but right backs as well. And I'm like, oh, great, here we go. Like in 1v1 situations. But with your doggy, I feel really confident. I think the only downside is probably disciplinary record. Needs to tighten that up because there's a few occasions where he does like a yellow card. And I think he's been a huge miss when we've not had him. So I'm hoping he recovers well and recovers in time for next season because he's going to be massive for us. And then young player of the year, from a Prem point of view, Cole Palmer. I think what else isn't to be said about him. Again, he's just a baller, to be honest. Yeah, and that's that. Your doggy for Spurs, and then Cole Palmer for Prem.
Business. I like that combination. It's good. Nelson, your young player of the season.
Oh, I had to take a trip down South London, near Purley, and I had to go to Mandem FC to bring out my player of the season in Michael Elise. That's my guy. And I really had to give him his flowers. I think he's under Glasner, he just looks like a different baller. Like, we already knew his talent and what he could bring to the Premier League when he made that move. But just seeing the link up play, seeing him take set pieces, direct free kicks, and his, like, we all probably could say off the top of our head that Jeremy Doku is the one winger you'd fear facing one-on-one. Please add Michael Elise to that list as well, because I would not want to face him one-on-one too. Like, that is a serious, like, I would be, well, I don't know if I can swear, but you get the vibe. So I think at the end of the day, I think Michael Elise, and the one thing he's doing is producing now the goals and assists to come along with, what Glasner's brought into Palace. So I think if he can kick on next season, I think now we're talking about bigger awards, like, because you already have Cole Palmer, which Wes mentioned already. Like, you could argue he was player of the season, despite winning young player of the season in the Premier League this year. So I think that's the next step for Elise, and the fact that if Eze actually stays at Palace, I think that actually helps his case. When you play better ballers around you, I think that helps elevate your profile as well. So no, hopefully he can do that. But Michael Elise, young player of the season for me.
Great shout. Both of them are great shouts. After hearing Wes talk about Udogie, it sounds awful. Not that I completely forgot about him, but again, like, you just forget when that player isn't there for a little while. You kind of forget how much you kind of miss them. But yeah, I'd have to go Udogie as well. Darren's gone for Eze looks class as well too. Agreed. There's lots of players in that Palace team, like you said, Nelson. It's very much an overlooked team, and that's probably because of how poorly they were before Glasner kind of came on the scene. But obviously that kind of wraps up our awards tonight. It's been very fun. I've enjoyed it. But we're going to talk a little bit, obviously, about the England squad, because the Euros are right around the corner. So, Wes, I'm going to come to you. What was your kind of overall thoughts of that announcement of who he's kind of taking to the Euros?
Yeah, really, really interesting. There's some names in there. Obviously, first of all, invest in Adam Wharton's stocks right now, people. I seriously have a feeling that he's going. He is taken to the Premier League like a duck to water. And I think he is the type of player that now people are starting to take notice of. But he's that kind of player that you didn't realise in your team that you potentially needed until now. And then you watch him and you go, oh my God, we've missed one here. We've absolutely fumbled one here. Gives me a little, he's almost like skim fade Carrick is probably the best way I can describe him. In terms of being that deep lying playmaker, spots a pass really well, passes forwards well. So yeah, buzzing about Adam Wharton. As people know, I was banging the drum for Spurs to sign him in January. But yeah, there's a few names that I thought would be in there. The likes of Henderson and Rashford, maybe not so. Sancho, May, I think he would have been on the cusp for me. Obviously, had a few good games at Dortmund, and you think, well, that with the stage that he's doing that on, might have potentially twisted Southgate's arm a little bit, but. The one player that's really, really surprising me and almost annoying me that he's in there is Lewis Dunk. Right? How on earth is he getting an England call up? Bearing in mind, not just in general. Then add into the mix, he's getting in ahead of Fikayo Tomori. Somebody in the comments or somebody at me or whatever to explain to me why Lewis Dunk is getting England recognition. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just can't see it. He's awful. Like, he's so bad. Like, Eric Dyer has done more to deserve an England call-up than Lewis Dunk this season. Genuinely. And Dyer's only played 6 months. Like, realistic. Well, to be fair, Dyer's played 2 games, realistically, which was Arsenal at home and Arsenal away in the Champions League, and he balled out. that alone should get him in there ahead of Lewis Dunk. But yeah, no, it's an interesting squad. I think a lot of youth in there, which we always like to see. I think it's interesting now to see who Southgate chops. You would argue there's a few names in there that you look at and go, well, likely to be chopped, but then it starts getting a little bit tricky. But listen, yeah, as long as Adam Wharton's in there, for me, I'm happy. I'm happy.
It's true though, Wes, because you did say in this show weeks and weeks ago, even probably months ago, even probably at the start of maybe mid-season, you said about Adam Wharton, and now again it's coming true. There's a calling for you, Wes. There's one out there for you.
My talent ID, I don't miss people. I don't miss when it comes to my talent ID. So yeah,
no, it's a good chat, and like I said, it's a nice mix of youth as well, which is something that I've been craving to see, I think, with Southgate. But Nelson, what was your kind of take on, obviously, when you saw the kind of squad announcement?
Oh gosh, where did I start? I was actually really happy, I think, in terms of the forwards that were brought into the squad. Am I wrong in saying that Dominic Solanke didn't get a call up?
No, he didn't because he's had a purple patch. That's why.
Yeah, okay. So I thought Solanke would get in that, if I'm being honest. I thought he would. One name that really bugs me that's in there is Jack Grealish. I'm just going to put it out there. I think if Marcus Rashford doesn't get in, I think Jack doesn't get in. I think despite the high-profile name, I don't think he has done much this season. But in terms of players, if you're just talking about them as pure ballers, forget about their form. Of course, you'd bring those two names to the squad. We've seen what they've done for England. But if you're basing Marcus Rashford based on this season, then I think Jack deserves the same treatment. So I was really annoyed to see Jack's name in there. I think you mentioned Tomori, Wes, and I've seen a lot of comments about people saying how this season Milan haven't been up to standard. He's been one of their not so good performers this season, which is a bit funny to think. But I think in that same Milan squad, who could have got a call up was RLC, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. He has absolutely teared it up ever since he's gone to Milan. And one of the things that annoys me about Southgate is the fact that, you know, we talk about homegrown players, and it's great seeing these players come up in the Premier League, but we have to also give credit to those who have actually taken the risk to go abroad. And we saw Jadon do it a couple of seasons back for Dortmund and get a call up for England. But you've got the likes of Tomori out there. You've obviously got Jude killing it in Madrid. And now you've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek as well. So you're thinking, you know, does that discourage players in the future to want to take that risk? Because it means that, you know, they might not get, you know, a chance to play for England. Because Tomori's probably thinking now, I want some jollof rice. I'm going to go to Nigeria. I'm probably going to go and play well. So do you know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of a sticky one in the sense that, you know, we've got all this talent, and Southgate isn't really recognizing them, especially the ones, in my opinion, that are playing abroad. But those are the names that kind of came up. I think apart from that, yes, I agree with Wes about Adam Wharton. I think he actually might go. I actually think he will make the final squad. And Lewis Dunk is a perplexing one. But Ben White could have been that person, but Ben's decided to not, you know, be part, doesn't want to be there. So you've just got your little bits in there. But I think we have 4 keepers, if I'm wrong, in that preliminary squad. I'm not sure if we're going to need 4 keepers, but, you know, we'll have to wait and see come final selection.
If Southgate's got any sense, he drops James Trafford because, look, Trafford is a young goalkeeper, 19, 20 years of age, came pretty much out of League One straight and then to the Premier League and found it tough at Burnley. But for me, it's more, and I think I said this ages ago with Trafford, it's his fundamentals for me. Like, yes, he's decent with the ball at his feet, modern trait of a goalkeeper, but his actual fundamentals in terms of his shot stopping, angles, that kind of thing, he lacks, but it's glaringly obvious for me. So I would assume Trafford is likely to be the goalkeeper that's going to get the boot. But yeah, I think also one minor concern for me is one out and out left back in Luke Shaw, Shawberto Carlos. Obviously, if he's out, then what is Tripp's playing left back? But then you're leaving yourself potentially a little bit short then for cover at right back. But then Chilwell and Reece James haven't been fit all season. So I think Southgate's probably looking at it from that point of view of, okay, you've not been fit all season. Can I trust you with, you know, the turnaround of games and how we prepare ourselves and things like that? So, and Curtis Jones must have something on Southgate as well, because how he snuck in there, I have no idea. No idea, mate. If he wasn't Scouse, he'd be in the Championship. That's Liverpool fans at me if you want, but you probably all know it's a fact. So yeah, If Curtis Jones wasn't Scouse, it'd be in the Championship. So yeah.
No, it's good. It's like I say, obviously we've got a little while to see who's going to actually make the plane. But it was nice to see a few names in there that have actually kind of earned it, like your Adam Whartons, like your Eze as well, that I see that's in there too. So it's quite nice that he is kind of picking players that aren't just his go-to, that we are usually seen with Southgate. But it's been great. Oh, go on. But no, it is good. It is good. But it's been amazing tonight to do our awards, throwing in some funny ones as well in there, and then obviously talk about the Euro squad. We'll go around the table and say our goodbyes. So, Wes, like always, it's been great to have you on. I'm going to go with you first because, I'm ready for this outro. Far away. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you for having me this season, Holly, and also bringing the Hotspur Huddle to life, because without you, it wouldn't be a thing. So, yeah, massively, massively grateful to you for kind of giving me this platform as well. But where can everybody find me? Twitter, @Wezo10, the unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account, as everybody knows by now, usually tweeting things about the best Belgian. To ever grace the Premier League, argue with your nan on that one. Instagram is @Wezo32. Usually at Spurs game. Was there on Sunday in Sheffield. Just about recovered my voice from not only singing about Arsenal but taunting Sheffield United fans as well, which was really good fun. I did kind of enjoy myself. And then we've got Kofa or @KofaMK, Kickoff Football Academy, Milton Keynes for all the football coaching stuff. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a football camp next week, which we still have some spaces for. So if anybody's watching from Milton Keynes, get in touch and get booked in. 4 days of really good fun, as Nelson knows, when he's not falling over his bum and falling over from a game of 2-touch for a coach's challenge. And then we are also due to announce our summer camp dates and times really, really soon as well. And then, Holly, because you bullied me into doing some football content, it's @WM32 Football on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for that. So, yeah, it's been a good season. And roll on the summer and next season as well.
100%. Like I say, it's always a pleasure to have you on, Wes. And Nelson as well. It's been awesome having you on too. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram at nnatumba25. That's nnatumba NTUMBA25. I just want to say thank you, Holly. I actually wanted to give you host of the season. Sorry, Uncle Albert, but I actually have to give it to Holly because I think it's been amazing. Like Wes said, thank you for bringing this to life. It's been a great season.
It has been good fun, and I'm sure that if you are up for it, we'll do some Euro content as well over the summer, because I will miss Wednesday's show being a thing throughout every week. So no, thank you both of you for coming, and also thank you to everybody that's been in the chat every Wednesday. Really appreciate it. Like I say, keep your eyes peeled for more content along the way very soon. I'm going to take a little bit of a break just because I need one, and then we'll be right back at it with Euro content and a bit of transfers as well, because I know Wes and Nelson like to talk about their transfers, whereas I'll just facilitate the conversation and ask questions. But it's been great as always to have everybody on, everybody watching. Until next time, come on, you Spurs.